Well, I'd like to welcome today Marilyn Fisher, long-term care Ombuds volunteer. She's been with our program for 5 years, since 2016. And before I begin talking to Marilyn today, I just wanted to give a basic idea of how we work. As Ombuds, we work with residents and their families to resolve issues at the lowest level in nursing homes, assisted living facilities, and adult family homes. Keep in mind that this is a positive opportunity to resolve issues. We're not going in there to try to find fault with the staff or the facility. Rather, we're there to serve the resident, support their dignity, quality of life, and their care. So really our goal is to bring people together to the table. It's a very positive experience. Our services are free and confidential, and we encourage people to reach out to us. If you have a question about resident rights, or if you're just wondering about services and care or even billing, we could certainly try to help you. You know, volunteers play such a big role, and so I just wanted to hear from you, share with our audience, why were you interested in becoming a long-term care ombuds? What interested you in becoming a volunteer ombuds?
You know, that came about not too long after I had retired. I'm a retired nurse, and so I had spent the last, 4 or 5 years of my career doing long-term care. And so after I had retired, it just seemed like a natural fit, just easy to slide right into that. And it was really quite beneficial, having worked in the facilities and I'm the one that went out and did some of the assessments and developed the care plans, and so I was just a natural fit, and I kept me busy, and I've been really enjoyed it.
So it sounds like you really enjoyed your career, and then when you retired, you wanted to stay busy.
It was kind of an extension of that,
Yeah.
Without pay.
Yeah. So, well, let me ask you this. How did your past profession as a nurse and your role in long-term care facilities, how did that help you become a volunteer? How was your knowledge and your experience over the years, how did that help you in your work as a volunteer ombuds?
I think the experience, well, and knowledge, I mean, knowledge is experience, that becomes invaluable, and especially in, in working in the medical field, and being able to, seems like you're always running into those situations where it's like, oh yeah, I remember we did this, and this, and it was always kind of helpful, and that you can usually pull something out and apply it. And I don't have a specific example, but I know there's been many times when I was able to think that in my working at work that we were able to resolve a situation, from past experience. So it became it was helpful.
You know, sometimes with memory care especially, it can be a challenge to get creative ways to help people. And I know we were talking about dehydration. And dehydration is so common. And you shared a story with how in your facility you helped with that. Didn't you have some little hydration program that you came up with? Can you just share that with me? Because I just love that story.
Yes. In memory care, we don't put out pitchers of water and glasses in the room. They don't always can identify what that is and what it's for, and pitchers of water or fluid will end up anywhere in the room, in the bed, on the floor, etc. So it's really important that they get served fluid on a regular basis, which doesn't always happen. And so they get the residents up early in the morning, and they'll bring them down to the dining room for meals, say at 8 o'clock in the morning is when breakfast is served. And so they'll get them down there maybe after their shower in the morning, and they'll be there from 7 o'clock and waiting for breakfast. And so they're sitting there, and they haven't had anything to drink maybe since the night before, well, maybe even dinner. the night before. So I initiated my watering program, I guess. So with just some Crystal Light, and mixed up a 2-gallon container of that, and made a point of making sure that they got some fluids there before breakfast. I think it was at 7:30 in the morning, and 11:30, and 4:30, and 7:30 in the evening. And the interesting part was that it reduced our falls. I think it was 67% or something. It was dramatic.
Yeah.
On what a difference that made. And it made the residents a whole lot more comfortable.
Yeah.
And cut down UTIs and a variety of things. So.
Thank you for sharing that story. And I know I kind of put you on the spot there, but the reason that's so important to me, because as a volunteer ombuds, a lot of times we'll get calls from families saying, gosh, my loved one's falling, or, you know, come to find out they're dehydrated. And so I feel like your experience, you can say, hey, you know, what kinds of things can help to solve the hydration problem. And, you know, as ombuds, we're not there to tell people what to do, but we do certainly brainstorm, and we are definitely problem solvers.
Yeah, or
so
maybe they have a lot of frequent UTIs, and
for sure.
yeah. Geez, you know, maybe you might want to give them a little more fluids.
Right, right. So thank you. So can you give me some examples of the best part of being a volunteer ombuds?
I think it's meeting people and developing relationships with the staff and families, and working together with them, being able to educate, coming up with some ideas that would help.
Like the watering program.
That, and and most of the families are very receptive on just trying something new and different for their families. So.
Right. So what is it like to work with residents? I mean, when I picture a nursing home, what can an ombuds expect when they come into a nursing home or assisted living? What are folks like? Are they happy to see you? Talk to me a little bit about the residents.
Well, you can expect anything. Most of them are pretty happy, or you know, they're willing to acknowledge you, and some of them are not quite so happy, and some of them are a little resistive, and depending on their mood, and somewhat might be even a little combative, or depending. And a lot of it is how you approach them, and what it is that you're wanting to do. But there's such a variety. It covers, you know, well, like everybody in any situation, there's a lot of personalities to deal with.
People from all backgrounds, all different occupations.
Totally.
It must be very fascinating to meet so many different people.
It is, and I believe that, you know, humor goes a long way.
Yes.
And I usually try to humor them into something that may not be the outcome that I was expecting to begin with.
Yes, I would say that to be a long-term care ombuds, you must have a sense of humor and be a good listener.
Correct.
Those are the two biggest things. So what's it like to work with staff?
Challenging sometimes. But for the most part,
do you find that they care about the residents and want
very
what's
much
best?
So. They're very caring. They know every little detail on some of these people. Well, most of them, and they'll know how many showers a week they get. They know what they like to eat. They know.
So they're a good resource. They're a good resource for you.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
And if they're a one-person assist or two, they know if they need help out with walking, or how much assistance they need with their dressing, and just, you know, whatever. They're just kind of this book on how to take care of their residents.
As far as the staff go, what do you do to try to have a positive interaction with them? You know, do you find that they like to talk to the Ombuds, or do some people even know who we are?
Well, I think it's like most anything, and it's a matter of developing that relationship and a friendship with them, so that you're not, they're not threatened by you. And once you get to know them and they get to know you and what you're there for, that you are there to support the resident and you're not there to create an issue or
Right.
cause problems or whatever.
Yeah, I'm going to pause right there because I just want to make sure and say that we are not there to find trouble. We're there to resolve issues. And I always like to say that we're at the lowest level, which means we can't give anybody a ticket or get anybody in trouble. So what I love when you tell me about your interactions with staff is that you work really hard to have a professional, positive relationship.
Right, and it's kind of a brainstorming thing between the staff and me, and just seeing if there's throwing out some other ideas and ways of that might some different ideas and things that might make it easier and benefit the resident.
Well, Marilyn, I wanted to talk to you about a couple of things that I know are two focuses for you. There's a lot of resident rights, too many for us to get into right now. But Marilyn, we're going to talk about the resident council, and we're going to be talking about care plans. So bear with me here if we could just kind of dig into those a little bit. A lot of people don't realize, you know, you hear about activities in the building and you just automatically think of bingo. But an important activity really is resident council. And really it's a resident right, and it's a way for the entire group of residents to address concerns that affect everyone. So can you tell me what makes resident council special?
Well, I think you just kind of hit on it, and it's a way for them to address concerns. And I always like to say, you know, is there some issues that you would like to see changed that would make living here, you know, improve the quality of life here? And it could be just something really simple, and it usually is. And I think the thing that comes to mind is usually it's people not picking up their dog poop, and it just seems to be that that's a big issue in a lot of places. And so it was brought up at the council meeting and what they could do about it. And so we took that issue to administration, and they ended up buying the stations that have the receptacle. They had a bag. So there was really no excuse that they didn't have a bag or a place to put it. And so it did help a lot. Can't say it took care of the whole issue, but it did make a big
It's just a great illustration of how coming together as a group on an issue that affects everyone in the building and actually getting something done about it. Sometimes people maybe don't feel they have a voice, or they don't know who to talk to about it. And so how important, how meaningful is it, do you think, for residents to have a resident council?
Well, they really look forward to it, to coming, and now they may not have any issue per se that they want to bring up at that month, but I think they just like to gather and be together and have that camaraderie and to share different things. And each facility kind of sets these up, and they're all structured a little bit different. The one that I'm familiar with, it was kind of set up, and it's for and by the resident. So there's no staff there. The staff can come by invitation of the residents. So it's more confidential. However, notes are taken, and we do print up what was discussed there. And administration.
But when you're talking about notes, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but when you're talking about notes, you're not listing who's there because you want anonymity.
Correct.
And I can imagine then that the residents really enjoy being in a group without staff around, because it seems like staff are everywhere. And so it's kind of like a club, if you will.
Correct. Yeah, and then it's just they're feel more open to talk more freely and that kind of thing.
Okay.
And I've always stressed if they really have something that's confidential that they want to talk about, that they can certainly let me know, and we would do that on a one-on-one. So the point is, I mean, how can we make changes if you can't talk to the administration about it? And so I take the council meeting minutes and discuss that with the administration and see what their solution to the problems are, and give them an opportunity to fix that. And then the following month, I review that with the residents, and so it kind of makes it full circle.
So this is all work that the residents have asked you to do. You're not just doing it on your own, because we are resident directed.
Yes.
So the wonderful thing about that is that you can then be the voice. So then the residents don't feel that pressure of having to go to the administrator. They've just given it to you and said, Marilyn, be our voice. I just find the whole thing beautiful, because then they're getting their concerns expressed, and you're talking to the administrator. Tell me how that has been for you. What's been your experience doing this? Have you felt like it works, or?
Yeah, it has. We've, like I say, the issues usually aren't, they're pretty easy to resolve, and it makes a big difference for them. They feel heard, and I feel good if it's just even if it's a little thing that they makes life better for them there.
And you get to form that professional relationship with the administrator. So
Yeah.
sounds like a win-win.
It is. Thank you.
It is a win-win. Okay, let's move on to now talking about care plans. Again, a care plan is a resident right. It's called different things in different facilities. Some of them are called negotiated service agreements. And a care plan is really a way for an individual resident to address concerns that affect their needs specifically. So in addition to meeting in a big group, as an Ombuds, you also meet with people one-on-one in their room, privately.
Correct.
So can you talk to me a little bit about care plans? What is a care plan?
When somebody is admitted, an assessment is done before they come in. And the purpose of the assessment would be to determine their level of care. So it's kind of, excuse me, it's kind of detailed in that it describes, do they need help showering? Do they need help dressing? Are they independent with ambulation, toileting, eating, special diets, and I could go on, but kind of get the idea. And how much care are they going to need? And so based on that, that would determine, as I just said, how much care they need, and i.e. how much you're going to pay to have them there for that care. So, and that's all typed out on this care plan. And so you should be given a copy of that and to read and to sign and return back to the facility. And they should actually go over that with you. They have a copy for the resident. The resident should get one. And then there's one on, the facility has a copy there also. So if, it's kind of like a little recipe card on how to take care of, how to take care of the resident. So it says here that, he showers, he's independent, when he showers in the morning, but maybe he needs help getting those shoes and socks on and pulling up those, like I say, getting those shoes and socks on. But he can, ambulate, and he's really not a fall risk. And so he's a pretty light care, as opposed to somebody that is a little heavier care that needs help showering, drying off his back, washing his feet, getting maybe he
So it sounds like they get pretty specific.
They can be, yeah, very specific. And they should be, because it does describe how much care that person's going to need.
So how important do you think the care plans are? I mean,
Oh, well, they're vital, because as I said, it's a card, it's a recipe on how to take care of that person. So you have a new caregiver come in, and all they have to do is go and look at this care plan, and it'll say, that they need help transfer him into bed, they need to be reminded to be toileted.
Yeah.
And yeah.
So, in your experience as an ombuds, what are ways that you address care concerns? I mean, you talked about the care plan, you've talked about resident council. Let's say, for example, that somebody's been taken to the hospital recently, maybe they've fallen. How does the care plan play into that when they return?
Yeah, the care plans are routinely updated quarterly, and then anytime there's a change in condition. So if this resident has gone to the hospital and he's fallen, obviously, I think of, hips or legs or limbs or something. So probably a hip. So there's going to be a change in mobility, assistance in transferring, getting dressed. All of his ADLs are going to be increased.
So I have to interject activities of daily living for
yes.
everybody who might not know what that is. But
Yeah, so all of that needs to be reflected on the care plan so that there again, somebody coming in could just flip over there and look and say, oh yeah, well he used to be able to do that on his own, but now he needs help doing this.
Okay, so I'm just going to address the audience really quickly. So, as Marilyn has been talking about the care plans, it's if you have a loved one or family member in a long-term care facility and you hear the word care plan and, oh, there's a document we want you to read and sign, read it. I encourage everyone to read it carefully, word for word. It really is so vitally important to your loved one's rights and their plan of care, and it's really the bread and butter to make sure that their needs are being met. So I've talked to so many people who've said, well, yeah, I had this document and they wanted me to sign it. It is very important. So, and as ombuds, we get to participate in that. The residents or the resident's family will ask us, they're, going, man, there's this care plan. I don't really understand what's in here. We can walk them through it, just like you were saying. And you don't have to be an expert. I know, Marilyn, you've got experience in your past occupation. But we have retired teachers, we have folks from all walks of life who are volunteer ombuds. I actually come from a dental background. It's really not that hard to learn, and part of being a volunteer ombuds is all the training. But I'm really glad you were talking about the care plans because it is such an important piece to make sure that their rights are taken care of.
Yes, the care plan, when it is sent out, or the family needs to sign that, and then it becomes a contract between the facility and the families that these are the provided services that they are going to give to the residents. So it's really important that you read them and that those services are met.
Right. Well, thank you, Marilyn. Really thankful you could be with me today, and just love what you do. So.
And I do too.
Thanks
Thank
again.
you. It was great.
My name is Shawna Pringle, Assistant Regional Long-Term Care Ombuds with Aging and Adult Care. We're here today talking about the volunteer opportunity as a long-term care volunteer ombuds. And I am so happy to have with me Adelle Johnson. She's been with us for 4 years. And before I start talking with Adelle, I just want to say that, there's an anonymous quote that I love. It says, volunteers are unpaid, not because they are worthless, but because they are priceless. And Adelle, I'm just so grateful for all that you do and what you provide to our program. So thank you for being here.
Thank you.
So I'm going to start off, just dive right in. Why were you interested in becoming a long-term care ombuds?
Well, my husband was disabled, and when I could no longer take care of him, he was in several long-term care facilities. And at that time, being like his case manager was almost a full-time job. And I noticed around me that there were people that did not have an advocate. And I always wondered, who speaks up for them? What happens to those people? And so once he passed away, I thought maybe I'll step in here and see what I can do.
So you saw a real need
Absolutely.
for people, maybe their relatives live in Colorado, or maybe they don't have anybody, any
Right.
relatives. And so as an Ombuds, you get to go
Right.
and visit with folks who don't
Right.
have someone. That's wonderful. So tell me a little bit about your past profession and how it's helped you in your role as an Ombuds.
Well, I'm a registered nurse and I'm retired. And I think one of the huge perks of that is sometimes when you are dealing with a resident that is having difficulties, having a little medical knowledge makes you think maybe there is something medical going on here that somebody hasn't noticed or that kind of thing. And like you mentioned earlier, dehydration. So that's been very helpful.
Great, wonderful. And I just wanted to tell the audience too that you don't have to be a retired nurse, although we love
By
our
far.
retired nurses. We've had retired teachers, we've had retired Forest Service, we've had folks who used to work in the service industry. I actually have a dental background, so we are really looking for volunteers who have a heart for vulnerable adults who really could use some support and advocacy. So Adelle, I appreciate that you're a nurse, and I don't want to scare anyone off thinking that they have to be a nurse.
Absolutely, that's a good point.
But I do appreciate your expertise. It does, I believe, help very much the program. So talk a little bit about the training you receive, any ongoing training. Do you feel like you're learning as you're going?
Absolutely. It's a way, as a retiree, I'm keeping my hand in. And it's so helpful. And the programs, the training is interesting. There's at this point, there's a Zoom meeting once a month. And, but there's always interesting things there. There are speakers. It keeps us abreast of the rules, the laws, the resident rights. It's wonderful training. You don't feel like you're placed out there and you don't know what you're doing.
Right. And you don't have to come in as an expert.
Right.
Because you'll learn as you go.
And you're growing.
Yeah.
You're growing. The more you work at this, the more you know and the more you grow.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Okay. So tell me about the support from the regional office. Are you kind of out there on your own? Do we just train you and toss you out there? Or?
Absolutely not. The regional office, and especially you, are at our fingertips. And I can't tell you the advice and how many times I call and see, well, I'm going to go here. What do I say? You're just so great at guiding us through, and you're completely at your fingertips. You don't make big decisions that you don't know what you're doing.
Thank you. And I wanted to tell our audience too that part of the access to having support is that you're not alone. If you do choose to become a volunteer ombuds, you have resources. There's online resources, ongoing training. You have the regional office, including me, talking on the phone. Also, you have each other. You know, Adelle was mentioning the Zoom meeting. I never knew what Zoom was a couple years ago, but we're all very excited because we do have more than a couple ombuds. We have about 5 ombuds right now, and we all get together once a month, and we learn from each other. Sometimes other ombuds have experiences, and you can learn from one another. So I think that's a great part of it. So tell me, what are some examples of the best part of the job? Give me some things that really speak to your heart or feed your soul.
One of the best parts of the job, as we just said, is having that support and the backup. But I think one of the best parts of the job is meeting such wonderful people. These people, most of them have a story, and you get to know them, and working with the staff. Staffs are great. The reason they're at that job is because they care about these people and they want to do what's best for them. And working with that and helping them do that is just so rewarding.
So what would you say is the most challenging part of being a long-term care ombuds? You ever come across anything that just kind of stumped you or just at a loss or?
Well, the thing is, it's all challenging because you're dealing with so many different people from different walks of life as well as staff. But I think that when you're up against a challenge, you've got that support from the regional office.
So it sounds like it's interesting. So maybe
It's terrifically interesting.
so maybe the challenge is that because it's so complex, but not in a bad way. It's always kind of prompting you to grow. Would that be?
Absolutely, and in meeting a resident, so if there is a challenge with that resident, you not only have the regional office, but you have the staff there, and they know those people well, and I rely on staff a great deal.
Right. So I was going to ask you what it's like to work with staff.
It's terrific.
Is it?
It's really wonderful. The staff, most staff respects us and what we do because we respect them.
So it's a very professional, positive interaction with staff.
Absolutely.
Right. So when you're going in, you're not looking for trouble. You're there
No.
just as a friendly advocate, just another person coming alongside.
Right.
Do you ever run into people who have no idea what an ombuds is?
Oh, most of the time. They just have no idea. And families are really not that aware. So it's always nice to explain that. And again, we are, as you said, we're low-level problem solvers, and it's just so rewarding when you can solve a little problem like that.
You know, as Adelle was talking about, there's so many people who've never heard of our program. And one of the reasons we're on today, and in addition to talking about the opportunity to be a volunteer, is that if you have anybody living, friends or family who are living in a nursing home, assisted living, or adult family home, we're here, free and confidential. We're resident rights advocates. And, you know, it's such a vital, important program. Spread the word. Like I said, every state in the nation has a long-term care ombudsman program. There's ombudsman in Walla Walla. There's ombudsman in Bellingham. And we are a great resource. And really, like you were saying, is part of the challenge is nobody knows about us. So we're getting the word out. So Adelle, I'm going to go on talk about a couple different topics. We're going to talk about the home-like environment and the activities. You know, when we talk about resident rights, people say, well, what's that? Well, resident rights are an important part. You know, home-like environment is a resident's right. It is so important for residents to feel at home. A lot of people don't realize the facility, and we call it the facility, is actually their home. And staff are there to work for them. And just would like to speak about that for a minute. So can you tell me a little bit about how staff, in your experience as an ombuds, how staff can help it feel like home?
Well, because they do become very friendly and know the residents quite well. They're encouraged to bring things that are important to them, family photographs, pieces of art. They're encouraged to decorate their area in their own way, bring their favorite things. Maybe it's an Afghan that they're used to cuddling up under or something like that. And staff is very respectful of their things that they bring, and they ask about them, and they get to tell those stories of, well, I got this when I traveled in Africa or whatever. So, yes.
Yeah. You brought up the point about respect. Talk to me about knocking.
Oh, absolutely. Staff is trained to knock at the door. I mean, this is their home. You wouldn't open the door and walk into someone's home.
Yeah.
So that's always done. That's very respectful.
You know, and I was thinking about some facilities really go out of their way about decorating the lobby. Can you give me an example? I know there's one that you just...
Yes, they have just this beautiful Christmas tree in the lobby, and the halls are all decorated. Residents, part of the activity is making some decorations, and so each door has a wreath or something that maybe they made or maybe someone brought them, or that's part of their treasured Christmas decorations that they've had in their home. And so it's just beautiful this time of year.
Yeah.
And all, it seems like the one I just visited, that everything is decorated. I mean, the halls, the dining room, everywhere there are decorations.
Right. Good. Wonderful. It's not meant to feel like a building. It's meant to feel like a home.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Okay. We'll talk about activities for a minute. You know, it is a resident right. It is so important for residents to have activities that are meaningful to them. And the facility has an obligation to survey the residents and see what is important to them. So I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about activities. Based on your experience as a volunteer, tell me about some of the activities you've seen.
They vary from facility to facility. Some of them have a happy hour, maybe it's Friday night or whatever. Others have bookmobile comes, there's reading clubs, there's crocheting, there's regular meetings of knitters, all of that kind of thing, book club, things for the men also. And yesterday when I visited, there were a number of the residents that had little cookie houses, that the cardboard frame was prepared for them, and then they put graham crackers and glued them on, and they had candies, and they were the cutest things, and they were all so proud of their handiwork. It was just really great to see.
That's wonderful.
One of the things, of course, that's been a real challenge during the pandemic, and one of the things that I was so impressed with, one of the facilities had, they called it hallway bingo.
Oh.
And the residents that were able had a chair at their open door, and the bingo numbers were called up and down the hall, and they could put their card up and play bingo.
Wonderful.
So because they were sequestered in their rooms.
Yeah. So it's great to hear about staff supporting resident rights.
Right.
To have activities.
Right, and those activity directors work so hard to find things that they can do and that keep them occupied and make them feel like they were doing something good.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Really
Thank you,
appreciate
Shawna.
being here.